11 Alive News at 6 p.m. starts now.
First on 11 Alive this Sunday, the calls of support keep coming in for America's 39th president and Georgia's favorite son, Jimmy Carter. Even more than 24 hours since the announcement on his move to be entered into hospice in Plains, the news continues to bring reaction from all walks of life. Just a couple of hours ago, President Biden sent out a tweet on the former president saying, quote, "Jill and I are with you in prayer and send you our love. We admire you for the strength and humility you have shown in difficult times," end quote. We continue our team coverage now. In a moment, we will go to Dawn White live at the Carter Center with reaction from many more who knew the former president. And also we'll hear from Karis Belger as people come to that site to salute his legacy. But once again, we begin in Plains. 11 Alive show John Sherrick is there to share how that small town honored its favorite son this Sunday.
The pride of a small town, the favorite son of Plains, here for decades. They are aching for Jimmy Carter now, who is just down the street from where we are with his family in hospice care at home. At church this morning, at Maranatha Baptist Church, Jimmy's and Rosalind's church, where Jimmy taught Sunday school ever since leaving the presidency in 1981. Prayers for comfort for him and for his family now. In the tiny downtown of history and shops, souvenirs and peanuts, visitors speak of wanting to see Jimmy Carter's birthplace for themselves, admiring him as someone who lives his faith and puts it to work for others.
No sorrow, just thankfulness, but tears. But I'm just thankful for the example and the life that he's led.
Plains is sad. We're all sad. We knew this day was coming. He was a great teacher. No matter whether he said it, people saw how he lived it.
They enjoy the closeness they have with President Carter, calling him nicknames, and he enjoys the nicknames JC, Deacon, Mr. Jimmy. So while the world mourns a global leader, they are mourning a close friend and neighbor. Jeff.
You know, John, it's such a small community, yet everywhere you go, every 20 or 30 feet holds some sort of memory of President Carter, whether it's playing softball against the national press back 45 years ago, or just running for office, whether it's governor or for the presidency.
In fact, much of this town is now a national park. The high school and many other places where Jimmy Carter grew up and where Rosalind grew up with him is a national park. And so that is an indication of how much this nation believes in Jimmy Carter and wants to honor him.
John Sherrick live in Plains, Georgia for us. John, thank you. Plains is fast becoming a focal point for this story. The other, the Carter Center here in Atlanta. Today, many people from all walks of life stop by to reflect. 11 Alive's Karis Belger spoke with people about the impact of President Carter's work.
For decades, the Carter Center has been at the heart of President Carter's work post-presidency. Today, it was a place for people to come and reflect.
He's a good human person, loving, kind, gentle man, and this world could use more of that.
Nancy Roraba and her friend Joey Hannaford were just a few of the people at the Carter Center Sunday, stopping by to contemplate the life and work of the 39th president.
I don't really think of his time as president, as being really the most important thing to me about him. I think the way he's lived his life since then is very inspiring.
Created in 1982, the Carter Center initiatives include addressing poverty, alleviating homelessness, and observing elections, among others. Work Robert Bryant says is as meaningful as the man the building is named after.
We have been very blessed to have had him as not only president, but as the humanitarian that he and his wife Rosalind have been to the world.
Bryant says Carter was the first president he voted for, and it was years later at a Braves game where he got the chance to meet the man.
Our VIP usher summoned me down to section 107 at Turner Field and said, "I have someone here that I'd like you to meet." And that was an evening that President and Mrs. Carter were at a Braves game.
A moment which came to mind as he walked the Carter Center ground. And he wasn't alone. Locals and visitors and people of all ages stopped by, something they say they were compelled to do after the recent announcement about the former president's health.
Hoping that he's resting comfortably with family and friends and loved ones close by.
Hearts and minds full of admiration of a life filled with impact.
There's few people that I could say have lived as thoroughly as he has.
Kara Spelger, 11 Alive News.
Today, the Carter Center says it's set up an online site to allow you to offer your own messages of peace and comfort. And you can find that right now on 11alive.com. Along with all of the areas of work that Kara's touched on, the Carter Center also began leading the global eradication effort of guinea worm, and that started in 1986. At the time, the parasitic disease infected 3.5 million people. Recently, the Carter Center announced that there were less than 20 human cases of guinea worm disease and reported that for 2021, the result of years of public health campaigns to improve access to safe drinking water in Africa. Today, we talk with Terry Adamson, a member of the Carter Center Board of Trustees, about the former president's mission.
You know, he once said that I'm going to outlive the last guinea worm. And if I were a betting man, I think I'd go out and check the guinea worm population. Which is not very large. It's like, it's less than 9 cases in the world that we know about from the hundreds of millions that used to exist before he started waging that battle. With each passing hour, more and more stories continue to pour in about President Carter and the kind of person he has been throughout his life, all 98 years. All right, we want to go back to the Carter Center for 11 Alive's Don White right now with more on the former president's continuing legacy.
Well, Jeff, a historian tells me that President Carter is known for what he did after his presidency as well as during the presidency, and that includes the Carter Center here, which he founded with his wife, Rosalind. That was back in 1982. Pulitzer Prize winning historian and biographer Kai Bird. He wrote a book about the president called The Outlier, The Unfinished Presidency of Jimmy Carter. Bird says President Carter was dedicated to justice and changing the world, both during and after his presidency. Bird believes it's not true Carter has a failed presidency and points to accomplishments such as the 1978 Camp David Accords and deregulating the airline industry, which allowed more middle-class Americans to fly. Bird believes Carter will be remembered as the most dedicated and intelligent U.S. president of the 20th century.
You know, he was the kind of guy who got up with the dawn at 5:30, 6 in the morning, and he was in the Oval Office a half hour later. And his working day was often 12 hours, and he would read 200 or 300 pages of memos every day. He was very hardworking and then paid attention to the details.
We also spoke to filmmaker Will Padditz, who made the documentary Carterland with his brother. He says Carter is a man of great faith who doesn't fear death because he believes in the afterlife.
He's a deeply religious person. I think it gives everybody who's a follower of his, a supporter of his, great comfort in knowing that if there has ever been a person that is okay with their own mortality and knows kind of where they're headed next, it is Jimmy Carter.
The historian says that Carter appointed more women and people of color than any of his predecessors, and that is combined. And that includes former UN Ambassador Andrew Young. I will be talking to him in about 45 minutes, and we'll have more on what he has to say about Carter and his legacy tonight at 11.
The favorite thing I've heard my grandfather say over the last week or two is someone asked him what's the secret to a long marriage, and he said, marry the right person, which I thought was great.
Grandson Jason Carter, who ran for the governor's seat here in Georgia a few years ago, marry the right person. Those words were on the occasion of Jimmy and Rosalind Carter's 75th wedding anniversary. The marriage began in July of 1946, but after President Carter's second proposal, Rosalind reportedly refused his first proposal, promising to her father that she would finish at Georgia Southwestern State University in Americus before getting married. Throughout the journey to Georgia's governor's mansion and eventually the White House, it was always done with a trusted partner. And through it all, the strong love was always clearly seen. Jimmy and Rosalind got caught at least a couple of times on those kiss cams, once at a Braves game at Turner Field in 2015 and 2 years ago during a Hawks game at State Farm Arena. For more on their bond, you can find it now on 11alive.com.
There are 3 more weeks until the official start of spring, but temperatures today were on the warm side, and overnight tonight will stay relatively mild. We'll stay partly cloudy. Your overnight temperatures fall into the 40s tomorrow morning. We get even warmer as we move into the week, but with the warmth will come the chance for some rainfall. I'll have that timeline coming up after the break.